Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the weekly live stream where we talk about all things career-related. If you are between jobs right now, if you are looking to climb the ladder, anything like that, that's what we're here to talk about. And this is primarily a Q&A, so if you are seeing my beautiful face, as always, you should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face. Get in the chat box, let me know what's up with you, let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. That's the entire point. This is episode number 127 of How to Get Hired. This episode is called Best Answer to Why Should I Hire You? So we are going to answer that right off the hop, and then we are going to get into your questions. But as always, a shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. Right there. Membership has the privileges. And also to all my Patreons, all my super thanks donors, and to you, my participants. Thank you for being here. Let's get into this. Okay, so the best answer to the job interview question, why should I hire you? You pretty much answer this the same way, whether you're in an interview or it's on your application if you're filling in a web form or something like that. And everybody loves those skill testing questions that they like to ask you. If you get any of those, by the way, remember, they're a pass-fail thing. It's a sudden elimination. So if you answer negatively to any of those, it pretty much means that your application stops there and doesn't even go to a human or anything like that. So, but some questions, you answer them differently, whether it's a form or whether it's in person, like, for example, the salary question, if they ask you on a form, they make it so that all you can do is put a single number, and you can't skip the question. In an interview, it's a lot more flexible in that. You don't have to give a single number. You can do all kinds of other things. So this question is pretty much the same. So if they ask you, why should I hire you? This is, one of these questions that's intimidating for a lot of first-time job seekers. But they're going to ask you this question in many different ways, shapes, and forms. And basically, this is a good question to be asked because you answer it by saying, well, as I understand it, you're looking for someone who, and then you go down the list of job requirements. These were printed in the job posting under a section usually called requirements. They say we're looking for somebody who has this education, these skills, this education, maybe these traits or this personality type. So they've already given you that, right? So the way you answer this question is you say, well, as I understand it, you're looking for someone who has this education, right? I have that. This experience, I have that too. This other experience, I have that too. These skills, right here. And you can go down that list and then you say, well, it seems like I'm the perfect fit. That's why you should hire me. And that's why I'm here. So if they ask you any question that's of a similar nature, they ask you, why should I hire you? They ask you, why do you want to work here? They ask you, what are your strengths? They ask you anything like that. It's always the same answer. Well, you said you're looking for this. I got this, right? Seems like I'm a perfect fit. And this plays right into your entire purpose in a job interview, which is to convey to them that not only are you fully qualified for the role, you have all the hard skills that they said they were looking for, right? But you've got that plus your soft skills, right? So you go down to the interview with the express purpose of telling them, hey, remember, I have this. And I have that, and I got that too that you're looking for, and I have this. If they ask you about your education, they say, we're looking for this. You say, yeah, I got that, and I got that with honors or, whatever, right? So that's what you're there to do, the hard skills and the soft skills. That's what you're speaking to. And that's how I would answer that question in a nutshell. There are 11 people here. Get in the chat and let me know your questions. The winner of the first person in the chat is Gloro, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I apologize. Gloro says, my question is, why do not hire more than 50, 60-year-old professionals? By the way, I'm following you from Brazil. Right on. Well, hello from Canada. Brazil, that's Portuguese you guys speak down there, right? Well, first of all, your question is false, okay? 50 and 60-year-olds can get a lot of jobs. I'm not seeing, like, for an example, I'm not seeing a lot of CEOs, executive managers that are 21 years old. You know what I mean? There are jobs for those too. Now, the other thing is you can get hired for most jobs. There's some things that, look, if you're 50 or 60 years old, you want to get hired as a waitress or anything that like really requires good looks and youth, it's going to be a tall order, right? If you're trying to get hired for something that requires bounds of energy, usually that's associated with youth too, right? Having unbridled vast quantities of energy. You don't exactly fit the mold, right? But anything that requires wisdom, experience, know-how, right? 50 or 60-year-olds crush it, right? That's the thing. I mean, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and different age groups or demographics have different strengths and weaknesses. Now, the problem is that, I mean, this is such a huge issue. It's hard to really just summarize it here, but there's many different reasons for the existence of ageism. And the other thing is that a lot of the way to go around ageism is to just, you get a job through networking, number one, where you reach out to companies, because that's where you're not getting hired because of being able to talk a good game. Like here's my resume, here's what's great about me, right? I'm talking about how good I am. That's not how you get hired. You're hired in that situation because you're the one that showed up, right? That's how that works. And you're demonstrating by even speaking to them, you're demonstrating why they should hire you. You're a professional, you look the part, you're easy to deal with, you've got initiative as evidenced by the fact that you're even here, you're persuasive as evidenced by the fact that they agreed to talk to you, the way you reached out to them and all this, that's a free sample of your communication skills and all this kind of, and so on and so forth. When you talk shop with them, you're showing off your knowledge and your wisdom and your savvy, all that kind of stuff. So that's how you get hired. Now, the other thing is that, what person is pretty much not going to have a problem with you being 50 or 60 or 70? It's someone who's hiring who is themselves 50, 60, or 70. Okay. So the problem is if you're 50 or 60 years old and you're talking to a 21-year-old that's going to hire you, that's when the problems start. If you're 50 or 60 and you're talking to a 50 or 60-year-old who's going to hire you, they usually won't have a problem with the fact that you're 50 or 60. That's usually how that works. So you find ways of talking to those people instead of someone who's totally not in your age group. Okay, that's a blanket solution. And it works the other way too. If you're young and nobody is hiring you, they're not taking you seriously because you're young, you get the same problem, right? This works both ways. You're 25 years old. You're putting in for a supervisor position because, hey, it's appropriate for you. You've done the work. You've been a worker. You know what to do. You've also maybe got some education and how to manage or how to supervise, but nobody's taking you seriously because you're young. You're in your 20s, right? You talk to a 60-year-old hiring, they won't give you a chance because they assume, what could you possibly know, right? It works the same way. So I'm not sure if that's any help, Gloro, but they are being hired, not universally, but like no one's being hired universally, but they are being hired. It's just you need to go through different channels sometimes to get hired. And love to Brazil. XYZ says, I'm interviewing for positions these days and I'm struggling to answer questions like, what do you expect of your future manager? I only have university experience and I'm never sure how to answer. Okay, well, that type of question, that's a little more exotic. It's not one of the standard job interview questions, but it's not so exotic that you can't prepare for it, right? Okay. Now, what I tell people who have only been ever in school and they've never actually been out in a career job, okay? And I'm assuming that perhaps in your case, you haven't even had have you had like a summer job or anything like that? Because if you do, then you'll understand this question, right? If you've ever had to do casual labor or anything like that, just, a summer type job or whatever while you're in school, then you could certainly be equipped to answer this. This is where, think of your education. Think of what you experienced when you're dealing with your instructors, okay, your teachers, whether they were professors or otherwise, and the administrators, okay? Same kind of thing, because when you're on the job, your boss their role is very, very similar to your instructor and to the administrators, okay? It's like you combine both of those roles in one. And you get a decent approximation of who your boss is. So, for example, if your teacher at school has ever said, okay, there's going to be a test or an exam or something, and they're very vague about, what it's going to be on, what you need to do to prepare for it, this kind of thing, that's analogous to a boss that gives very unclear instructions over what you have to do, right? But basically, what you have to do for a boss is extremely similar to what you have to do for a teacher in school, right? They give instructions, you have to follow instructions. They give deadlines, you have to be able to do time management and meet deadlines. They throw challenges at you. You have to be trainable. You have to learn new materials in a small time frame. You're expected to seek clarification when you need extra clarification. You're expected to, take initiative, take the lead. If you need to, in school, a lot of times you do collaborative work, like group projects and things like that you then submit to the teacher. It's very similar. In a job, you do collaborative work. You work with other people at your level, and then you submit something to your boss, essentially, right? So it's very, very similar stuff. So the issues that you would have with a teacher are going to be very, very similar to the issues you would have with a boss, right? Maybe they're unreasonable. Maybe they're unclear. Maybe they keep changing their mind and, they have a double standard, or they're just completely disorganized, or they don't have time for you, right? You want to go talk to them, ask them some questions one-to-one. They don't have time for you. It's all the same stuff, okay? So imagine your teacher and then answer the question, okay? How would you like to be treated? What would they have to be able to do for you for it to work out? Hopefully that helps. Gloro says, I have 35 years experience as international business development. I've been traveling all over the planet. I speak 4 languages. Graduate in the UK business. Okay, well, that's a good start. You see, the problem sometimes, have you ever heard of the term overqualified? If you're 50 or 60, you probably have, right? It's a euphemism. It basically is a polite word when they don't want to say what the real issue is that they don't want to hire you for, right? A lot of times it's connected with the assumption that you will want more money than they can pay you, right? It's an assumption on their part, right? So you say stuff like this. You say look, I've traveled all over the planet. I can speak 4 languages. I have this, I have that. And then they go, okay, well, you're probably overqualified then, right? It's a really stupid thing that recruiters do, because on the one hand, what's the thing that recruiters care about the most? Years of experience, right? That's the metric they always use to measure just how qualified you are in something, right? It's years of experience, right? One candidate has 5 years of experience, another candidate has 7 years of experience. Clearly, the person with 7 years of experience is better at the job, right? Well, no, but to the mind of a recruiter, they are, right? This is one of the frustrating things. Up until the point where maybe you have 9 years of experience, at which point you're magically overqualified for the job, right? You got to love this thing. Don't try and figure it out. Don't listen to these explanations and take them literally, because literally they don't make sense. They're code for other things that are going on behind the scenes. Okay? There's no such thing as overqualified, right? In the same way that, there's no really good reason not to hire someone just because they're 50 or something, or 60, right? It's all about their perception of you, right? And what recruiters do is they rely very heavily on stereotypes because they don't have the time to actually get to know you. So what they do is they look at you according to very superficial criteria, like your age, right? And then they make assumptions based on a stereotype, right? They're saying the likelihood is that because you're 60, you will want more money. You will not be interested in learning new things. You'll have a lower amount of energy than, say, a 25-year-old, right? You see, they're making these assumptions and then they're judging you on the assumptions, right? So that's the problem you're up against. Now, one approach is to brute force this method, to go to recruiters anyway and be proactive and say, look, I know I'm maybe a little older than a lot of candidates, but I can assure you I have a ton of energy. I'm a very energetic person, almost like a preemptive kind of argument, right? Where you challenge the stereotype that that they're judging you on, right? The other alternative is to go around this crap, right? You go straight to the hiring managers. You don't go through a recruiter. You don't apply for posted jobs. You reach out to the employers. You go to the hiring managers directly and you say, listen, I'm awesome at this. This is what I do. Now, if ever you're looking to hire someone that does that, please let me know because I'd love to work for you. I know about your company. I know you guys do this work. I think that's terribly exciting. If ever you're looking for that, please let me know because I'd love to work for you. Thanks and have a great day. You blast that. Instead of blasting out job applications to like hundreds and hundreds of places, you're blasting out that type of template message, right? That's called direct outreach. And that's extremely powerful. And that is the sort of thing that smooths over so many issues. If you're a generalist and no one will take you seriously, it solves that problem. If you got a work gap and no one will take you seriously because you've been out of work for 3 years, maybe for a legitimate reason, it smooths over that. If you're changing careers, people won't hire you because by definition you have 0 years experience in the job you're going for, right? This smooths over that. Ageism. There's a whole bunch of different things that this thing smooths over, right? Because they're not relying on stereotypes. They're dealing with you as you present yourself. So learn all you can about that, okay? Go and do your own research on the internet. If you're looking to learn that with me, I've got a course that covers all that, so you can check that out. Link in the description. But either way, learn about that stuff. That's one way of handling issues like this with the standard HR corporate hiring process. Most people do not go through that process, just so you know. Most people who have jobs get it through some form of networking, not through applying for a job cold and talking to a recruiter in a job interview. Now, if you don't believe me on that, hey, go do your own research, find that out for yourself, and then when you're sold on that, then come back and we can talk about how you can do this to succeed. Okay, so where are we here? XYZ, that comparison makes a lot of sense. I didn't think of that on the spot. Thanks so much. Oh yeah, okay, the experience thing. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very simple, but I'm glad you that worked for you. Glaro says, I heard that all the time. I should be a genius. Yeah, well, you're 50 or 60. I mean, just all things being equal, you're going to know some stuff. You've been around the block a few times, right? I'm in the same boat. It's like, unless you went through life with like a blindfold on and, earplugs in, it's like, you know a few things, XYZ, would you say it's more effective to directly contact recruiters than I feel like I'm wasting my time applying for most jobs? No, it isn't. No, I mean, when you apply for a job, what do you think you're doing? You're essentially contacting a recruiter, right? It might go through some filters first, but essentially you're contacting a recruiter, right? Now you're just starting out, XYZ. Listen, learn about networking, learn about direct outreach. That's what I'd recommend. I have, okay, listen. If you want to understand kind of what I'm talking about, in the if you see what I'm saying, in the description box of this live stream below this video feed, there are some links to some resources that I have, like just some free videos on my YouTube channel and stuff. And one of them is called Hidden Job Market. I'm just going to adjust my camera here. One of them is called Hidden Job Market. Okay. The other one is called How Successful People Get Jobs. So if you look at the description box under the live stream, hopefully you can find both of those links. One's called Hidden Job Market. One's called How Successful People Get Jobs. And check those out, especially the second one, How Successful People Get Jobs. That's what direct outreach looks like over social networking. There are many ways to network. There's stuff that's really tailored to extroverts, and there's stuff that's really tailored to introverts. And because I am an introvert, I'm a technically minded introvert, I've always done stuff that works for me. It's more introverted related, where you reach out to people, and I'll go and I'll talk to people face to face if they want to talk to me. If they're not interested in talking to me, it's a waste of time. I'm not going to show up at their door and, do any of that. That's for extroverted people. They like to go to events. They like to strike up conversations with people they don't know at events or one-on-one and do it that way. And a lot of them, I've met many people that are just brilliant at doing that. I'm envious of their ability to do that. But that doesn't work for me, and that doesn't work for a lot of introverts. There are other ways of doing it. We have one of the greatest gifts that God gave man, and that's the internet and social networking. So you can, just with the power of a smartphone, you can connect with millions of people, and you can make amazing things happen just by knowing what to say to whom, right? It's just the knowledge that you lack. You have everything that you need. You just have the knowledge of what to say to whom and how, like over what channel do you go, right? So imagine if you had that knowledge, you'd be able to make miracles work, and this isn't even a miracle. This is just knowing how people operate, knowing about people, right? So, just learn that stuff. And if you want to know what direct outreach looks like for an introvert using social networking, check out that video link that I have below called How Successful People Get Jobs. I use that exact method to build my consulting business, which is what I do as my day job. So, you know what I mean? That's what it looks like. So clue into that, right? It's not about connecting with recruiters. It's about going to hiring managers. They are different people. The recruiter works for HR. They studied HR in school, like they learned about employment standards and labor laws and things like that. You're wanting to talk to the hiring manager. The hiring manager for a job is the person who's going to be your boss if you get the job. They don't work for HR. They're like a functional manager of some kind, right? So if you're an accountant and you're applying to an accounting job, right? You go down to a job interview, there'll probably be two people there. One will be the recruiter who works for HR. The other one will be the chief accountant, right? The head of the accounting department. Because if they end up hiring you, you're going to be reporting to that person. You're going to be working as an accountant, reporting to the head of the accounting department, right? The chief accountant or whatever you call it, the controller. So that person, the chief accountant, is at the job interview. They are the hiring manager. That's the person you talk to. Now, when you talk to the hiring manager, if you're an accountant, you could talk accounting, right? You can't talk accounting to a recruiter because the recruiter doesn't know anything about accounting, even though they're hiring for an accounting position, right? Their background is in HR. Right? They know nothing about accounting. So you go down to talk to them and you start talking to them about your approach to accounting and the tools you use and, the methods you found over the years work the best. They won't have a clue what you're talking about. You talk to the hiring manager and their ears will pick up and their eyes will get wide and they'll be like, yeah. And they'll have a thriving conversation with you about the best methods to do accounting and some of the common pitfalls and, what you think are the best solutions to avoid those pitfalls, right? and you'll have this great discussion about accounting. And at the end of it, you'll both really like each other, and you'll feel like you understand each other. You can work with each other, right? So that's why it's contacting recruiters is not really what I recommend. It's trying to contact the hiring managers. And you need to know a bit about how hiring managers work, how you contact them, and what you say, and all that kind of stuff. So learn that stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. There are 17 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. We have a partly cloudy day. So that means my camera is getting very bright and very dark constantly. It's really wonderful. Get in the chat if you have a question about job search or anything like that, how to answer job interview questions, how to get interviews, how to do a resume, how to do an application, all that kind of stuff. Then there you go. Dennis Sr. says, no, thank you. Awesome. Right on. Well, it's more for everyone else, Dennis, so that's great. 80% of people who get hired through networking. If you don't believe me, look it up yourself. So the sooner you are open to that kind of stuff, the sooner you have access to way more opportunities. A lot of people end up finding that out later on in their careers. That's just a common thing. Some people never find out, but most people do. It's more later. Think of all the construction jobs that people get. Do they get those jobs by sending in a job application? No. They happen to know the site supervisor or something, or they show up on site, talk to the person there that day, start as a laborer, and then bam, next thing you know, they're running the place. It happens at every level. And when you get to anything above middle management, it's pretty much exclusively how they recruit those jobs. You don't hire CEOs by posting a job and having some stranger apply, and then you interview them. That's not how that works, right? It would be the equivalent of you hiring someone and then, you're going away on a vacation or something, and you're putting them in charge of your house. If you've got a house, I don't know, like all your stuff. They have access to your bank accounts. They have access to all your personal property, like, very sentimental valued stuff, like that, like irreplaceable, right? They're going to manage all of that for you while you're away, right? Now, tell me, what would it take for, imagining that, you were in a position where you had the money to pay someone to do that for you, and you had all this, like, really cool, expensive stuff that was very important to you. What would it take for you to hire someone and feel comfortable about giving them the keys and the access codes to all of that while you're away? What would it take? Would you feel comfortable hiring a stranger? You post a job, you interview people, and you kind of go, you seem fine. Is that what it would take? You'd be comfortable with that? Or would you hire a family member or a close friend or possibly someone that you don't know, but a close family member personally vouches for and says, like, you know what? I've worked with them for 25 years. They know their stuff and they're trustworthy. I guarantee it. If you had that, would you feel comfortable? If you didn't have that, would you be comfortable hiring a stranger? Let me ask you that. Okay? Because that's the situation when you're, filling executive management roles. Somebody built up a business to varying degrees is some kind of cash cow, certainly if they're hiring, right? It generates money. You didn't build it up, somebody did, but they're considering putting you in charge of it for them so they don't have to worry about it, right? What would it take for them to feel comfortable about you? Ask yourself that, right? Would you feel comfortable handing over? The answer is no. You would never hire a stranger because it's that important, right? That's why they hire through networking at higher levels. And that illustrates why it's so effective at hiring at lower levels. It's the same principle, just brought down, right? What's the biggest concern when you hire someone? Oh, they seem fine, but you never know. They might turn out to not be good, like this could all be an act. We don't know. They're saying the right thing. They look the part, but does that mean that what you see is what you get? No. A lot of employees don't work out for various reasons, right? So if you could get someone that you trusted, say someone who worked with you at the job, that you've worked with together for years, and you trust them, and they said, listen, this candidate here, I worked with them in a previous job for 10 years. They're good. Okay? I know what I'm talking about. I worked very closely with them. They're good. You can rely on them. I had to. And they didn't let me down. I vouch for them. Right? That usually seals the deal. It's not about like your exact qualifications and exactly what you say in an interview. Right? Now, let's say you don't have those connections, Most people don't. Like, what are the odds that you just happen to know someone in an organization that they're hiring right now, and the person has some kind of working relationship and influence with the hiring manager? What are the odds of that happening? They're very slim, right? So that's why most people don't have that, but they do direct outreach. They reach out to the hiring manager, right? Usually in advance. Okay, XYZ says, that's so insightful. I'm sitting here taking notes. Well, good. XYZ says, what about letters of recommendation? They play a part, but once again, let's return to that example of the rich person going on vacation, handing over the keys to their house, all their cars, allowing access to all their personal stuff, very, very important, extremely life-changingly disruptive if your trust is misplaced, right? You hire the wrong person, you come back home, your house has been burnt down, it's been gutted, your bank accounts are drained, and they're nowhere in sight. You know what I mean? Let's return to that example. Now, if you got a stranger, but that stranger had a letter of recommendation from someone, would that make a difference to you? Probably not. If it was a letter of recommendation from someone you know and that you trust, that you worked with them, you know them, either your friends or you've got some kind of working relationship where you trust them, then, okay, fair enough. Now, the letter of recommendation, if it's from someone you don't know, but it's someone in like a high position, they're the dean of the business school in the local university. It's like, okay. What you could do is, if you really want to be sure, you could call this dean and say, yeah, hi, my name is whatever, I'm hiring for this position, and I'm calling because I'm interviewing a candidate, John Doe, and they produced a letter of recommendation from you, that sort of attests to their abilities and their good nature and all this kind of thing, and their abilities. Can I just ask you, how many years have you known this person? And, it's a very glowing letter of recommendation. Can you maybe give me some insight into what your involvement with them was or something like that? And they say, oh yeah, they're great. It's like, okay, then that carries more weight. That's something that okay. It's a person that they're reachable. They're in a very prominent position. Therefore, that helps me trust their opinion. You know what I mean? But if it's someone you don't know that you can't really verify, then it's better than nothing, but it's not as valuable as some kind of personal thing, right? So certainly if you're coming out of school for entry-level jobs, letters of recommendation are good. If you can leave school with letters of recommendation from several of your instructors, with being able to, you have several of your instructors, maybe even the dean, as a reference, right? If you know the dean, if you've gone and met the dean a couple of times and asked them questions, you could stop by their office and say, hey, would it be okay if I used you as a reference? Would that be all right? And also your instructors, depending on where you're going to school and what's going on, they could also be a source of networking. You could have networking links based on these people. If you go to your instructors and say, like, listen, do you know anyone in this industry? Like, I'm interested in working in this industry. You teach classes that pertain to this industry. I'm particularly interested in this area of this industry. Do you know anyone, that I could maybe reach out? They might be able to give me a tour, or I could do an informational interview with, something like that, right? So now you've been referred to someone working in a company that's a hiring manager or something. I don't know if they're hiring now. Chances are they're not, but they could hire in the future. You go talk to them. Learn about the industry, get them to give you a tour, and it just goes from there. And the more of this you do, the more like opportunities will open up before you. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Great questions, XYZ, or XYZ, depending on where you are. Get in the chat. I'm here to answer any questions on careers and job search, basically. I have this live stream, and I have one in like an hour and a half. So I'm going to be live streaming this afternoon, answering your questions. While we're waiting, we've reached the end of the chat. While we're waiting for the next question, just while I have your attention, check out these courses. If you're looking to get hired, you don't know what to do, you don't know how anything works, you're having problems, you're not really getting interviews, or you're getting interviews, but you're not really getting offers, any of those issues, check that out. The other thing that people would be interested in here, I believe, would be this one. If you are looking to improve your soft skills, in particular your communication skills, check out that course. Between going from a supervisor to a CEO, all the communication skills that I learned, I basically put them into that course. So that's what that is. So if you want to learn advanced or above average communication skills in an organization, check out that course. It's about writing, but it's also about what to say, how to respond, how to persuade, how to deliver bad news, all that kind of stuff. So check that out if you want to improve your communication skills in particular. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, I actually do have a couple other YouTube channels. If I can orient my finger correctly, I got additional stuff on the Company's Expert 2. So check that out. Go subscribe. And the Company's Expert 3, that's where I put a lot of extra business-related content that I talk about. So go check those out. Get in the chat. I'm here purely to answer your questions, so I'm just waiting for the next question. And I'm going to ride my camera brightness again. Here we go, something like that. It's not responding. There. Yes, I'm using the same gear that I used to launch my YouTube channel like 6 years ago. So very basic stuff. So it doesn't even do like an auto brightness thing. Yes, get in the chat and let me know what you're wondering. What is the issue if you are not getting interviews or you're not getting offers? Let me know what your situation is. XYZ says, I will take the opportunity to ask another one. Would you recommend including generative AI in your CV if using AI regularly? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a tool. It's like saying, would you recommend using spell check and grammar check in your CV? Yes, absolutely. I mean, like any tool, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, right? So, number one, make sure that you proofread whatever the hell you put on there, right? Like, don't just let it write your resume and then you just send it off. You know what I mean? So obviously you got to be smart about it. And if you know how to use it, definitely. Yeah, it's a very useful tool. You know what I mean? Now, the thing is, AI at the moment, and this may change in the future, at the moment, it's really, really good at like a few things. Okay? It's kind of mediocre at like a lot of other things, but it's really good at, certain specific things. And when it comes to resume type stuff, I find that it's if you just let it create the content or rearrange the content, it does an okay job. It doesn't do a fantastic job, but it does an okay job. But it sounds very generic. It keeps using, at least when I use it, and I've been using it for years, it keeps using the same words over and over again, and it has like standard ways of phrasing things that, it's almost like a signature that this is written by like ChatGPT or whatever other AI, So, use it because it's a tool, but don't just rely on it to do the entire thing. Like, you've got to sort of coordinate it and direct it, right? Okay, that's what I would say. But I'm not one of these people that's going to tell you like, no, don't use it at all, because, there are people like that out there. And, they're wrong. It's here to stay. It's changing the world. I mean, that much is obvious, and just like many other changes I've seen in my life, it's the way of the future, I mean, I'm dating myself. I remember when the internet came in, and like you had the same thing. Number one, people ignore it right up until they can't ignore it anymore, at which point they all freak out, right? They just absolutely freak out. Then they warn you of the dangers of this evil new thing, right? And how it's going to destroy the world, right? And then when, of course, it doesn't, and it's just recognized as universally as the good thing it is, they move on to the next big change and then tell you that's going to destroy the world. And then they, after ignoring it and then freaking out, they accept it and embrace it, right? So it's just the same again, right? That's exactly what's happening with AI. Schools used to ignore it, and then they freaked out when they couldn't ignore it anymore. And then their immediate knee-jerk reaction was to try and ban it, which of course they couldn't do. And then they just accept it. It's like that journey to acceptance, So we're seeing that in some circles with recruitment, Recruitment is like totally majorly affected by AI, but they're having this like, once again, the default kind of childish reaction to it, where they're perfectly happy to use it for their stuff, but then they'll say things like, oh, when you submit your application, you are not allowed to use AI or whatever. It's like, yeah, BS, right? The big joke that I shared with people like a couple of months ago was someone had sent in a job posting, and it was to work at an IT company. And that IT company does a lot of like AI type work, right? They don't just use it internally, but they actually make AI type products and things. And they said in the job posting, we don't want you using AI, in your job application. It's like, you're an AI company, for God's sake, So yeah, it's silly. So absolutely, yes, you can use it, and I would recommend it. In fact, it's something you should be doing because, number one, it's very hard to be successful applying to posted jobs, but yet not tailoring your resume to each job. Like if you just have a generic resume that like, this is me, and then you blast that out to every job you apply for. Very hard to get like interviews and stuff doing it that way. You need to customize it, to tailor it, right? That's how you get like a bite, and they bring you in for an interview. So the big advantage of AI, of course, is that you can do that customization, but yet it's not nearly as labor intensive as it used to be like 5 years ago. XYZ says, I find this is especially the case for letters of motivation. I stay away from AI to write an authentic letter instead. Yeah, like okay, I could see that. I'm not 100% sure what a letter of motivation is, but if it's a very emotional, warm kind of thing, almost like a recommendation, then yeah, like you get ChatGPT or something to do it. It's probably going to sound very, very generic in its first draft. You'd have to doctor it, and edit it and annotate it, and, punch it up a bit and make it sound like it's coming from an actual human. Because otherwise it'll do something that's okay, but it's not going to sound like it's coming from a human. It's not going to sound warm. It's not going to sound really emphatic. It'll just be ho-hum, kind of okay, kind of cold. So you'd have to refine it a bit if you do use AI. But yeah, I write stuff and I don't use AI for everything. I use it for a lot of things, but not for everything. I imagine people that write fiction novels and things, they still use it. They still write it themselves because you could get, AI to write you a fictional, story or scene or whatever, but it sounds like AI wrote it. It's just kind of generic and boring and, not particularly good. It's passable, but not great. So to make it great, yeah, you would still need, at the moment, you still need to do that yourself, Anyway, there's 17 people here. There's really not a lot of people here today. I don't know if maybe I'm not doing something right or YouTube's not doing something right or whatever. Usually I get a lot bigger turnout than this. So I'm just curious if there's some issue. It's not like my sound's going out or anything like that, is it? Yeah, get in the chat, people. There are 17 people here. Let me know if you have any questions or whatever, and I will address them. Otherwise, I guess I will sign off a little bit earlier if I don't really get anything. Check out those videos that are linked in the description box. There's two of them in particular. One's called Hidden Job Market. If this is not something that you've really dealt with before, you will be amazed. Your eyes will just widen, when you realize just how many jobs there are out there, because 80% of them are not posted. All the jobs that you see that are posted, what you're seeing is 20% of all the jobs that are actually out there. And the other 80% are there. It's just they're not posted publicly. And you can get those. You can access those because they're in the hidden job market, right? And you access it in a word with some form of networking, including things like direct outreach. That's something anybody could do. I don't care if you don't know another living soul, you have no friends, no family, nothing. You can still get hired quite easily by doing direct outreach, and having just some basic social skills, like you could write a little note to people, you know what I mean? The great thing is that it's like a template. You don't have to customize each one of these apart from changing people's names, so so check it out. It's something that everybody needs to check out. You will be thanking yourself for the rest of your career. That's where all the good jobs are. That's where 80% of the jobs are, They're not posted because they don't need to be posted, because they're not having problems finding people that want those jobs. That's the thing, And you just sort of get in there with a direct outreach thing, and you're basically the first person that they talk to for those, And they hire you because you're the person who showed up. And if you came across as professional, as enthusiastic, passionate, you gave a free sample of what you're like to deal with, they'll hire you on the basis of that. It's much better. It's a much more positive process. It doesn't feel dehumanizing like talking to recruiters and going to job interviews. That's where they treat you like cattle. I have memories of doing that like years ago, like any regular person, going to job interviews with, you sent in your resume, and it's like, it's just dehumanizing. They're rude, they're insulting, they're incompetent a lot of the times. And, you're just a number. You get down there, half the time they don't feel like even talking to you. Like it's like a chore to deal with you, Everything I've done with networking or with like direct outreach and stuff, I built my business with direct outreach, going exclusively to CEOs. And the thing is, it's like, it's so much more of a positive process The people that you go and talk to, you're going down to talk to them because they've invited you in. They want to talk to you. When you get there, they're like, hey, thanks for coming, like this kind of thing. They're waiting for you. You have a very pleasant experience most of the time. There are exceptions, but most of the time it's positive. For me, I just have memories when I was interviewing for jobs like a regular person, talking to recruiters and stuff. You'd have positive experiences too, but they were more the exception than the rule. At least for me, they were. Maybe I'm abnormal or something, but that was my own experience. That's why I have a chip on my shoulder to this day about recruiters, because I dealt with some pretty bad ones back in the day. I don't know if you guys did too. Anyway, I'm not getting a lot of questions, so I guess I'm going to wind this down. Now, I will be back in an hour and 10 minutes. I've got another live stream this afternoon. It's a different stream. It's called Honest HR Nitrous. That's where we talk about job search, but kind of the ugly side of it. Fake jobs, ghosting, that kind of stuff. That's what we do basically there. So if you're interested, you could come back to my channel and participate in that. That would be awesome. I'd love to see you there. Other than that, check out my courses, especially this one, right? If you're having problems getting hired, you're sending out applications, but you're never getting interviews, or you're going to interviews, but you're never getting offers, check out that course. That's all my advice all in one place, and it's geared towards introverts. It teaches you how to get hired on the posted job market and how to get hired in the hidden job market. So if you're looking for both of those or either or, that's where I put all my advice. So check that out. There's a link in the description box. And I've also made one video that's like a FAQ, frequently asked questions video. So it explains exactly how the course works, what it does, how it works, what you get. So it's as transparent as possible. So check that out. And there you go. I will be back in just over an hour. Until then, thanks for the 17 people that are here now. You guys are awesome. Always remember that. Never let recruiters or hiring managers or anyone else convince you that you're not. When we're between jobs, we feel this tall, right? It feels like a gut punch, but yet at that moment, that's when you have to endure the most rejection you're probably going to get in your entire life, and also have to maintain a facade of being super confident. So it's very, very trying times, but it's only temporary. You will be okay. I'll see you guys in an hour. Take care. Thank you.